The way I think about stick building in terms of trade-offs, it's going to cost way more money because you have an army of subcontractors that all have margin they need to take on the project. You need extremely highly skilled labor, right? You need like expert carpenters and expert roofers to do this work for you. You're not buying materials in bulk, and you're trying to orchestrate this complex construction project. So it ends up being much more expensive, usually by about double other methods. Oh, for sure. It's very expensive, right? And it depends on your local geography of exactly where you are, what the local costs are, but it's like building a Toyota Prius in your driveway with a team of 20 guys over 18 months, right? It's not going to be the world's most efficient process, and there are going to be costs associated with that. I'd rather build my Prius in a factory with machine-like precision.
Hi, everybody. This is Joseluiz Morales. Welcome back to the Morales Group podcast. Today, we've got a very special guest. His name is Erik Preston. He is the head of development for Habitat ADU. Today, he's going to be talking to us about the process of installing ADUs that are manufactured homes or prefabs. And then he's kind of fill us in as to what is an ADU and kind of going over from the very basics to a little bit more advanced. Welcome to the show, Erik. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me, Jose Luis.
Thank you, man. Good. So I know a lot about the regular ADU process. Some of our viewers may know somewhat. I wanted to kind of go over the prefab ADU. But before we get into that, let's just start off with what is an ADU and how does that differ? How does a prefab ADU differ from a regular ADU?
Sure. So ADU, in short, stands for accessory dwelling unit. And that is a legally defined term now in the state legislature. So especially in California, the state and many local jurisdictions have taken a very favorable view towards accessory dwelling units or ADUs because they are a great solution to California's housing crisis. And by building more accessory dwelling units, we can create more affordable and attainable housing in communities that need it. So what exactly is then an accessory dwelling unit? It's actually really broad, and it's defined broadly in the law. So they take many forms, right? First off, we can have an ADU, which is basically just any sort of secondary or accessory livable, permitted, rentable dwelling that sits on the same parcel as a single family home or a multifamily home that would serve as the primary dwelling. So they can be attached. They can take the form of being attached to a primary residence. Like if you have like a basement that you convert into a secondary permanent dwelling unit, that would be an attached ADU. You could also convert like an attached garage to an ADU. That would be not only an attached ADU, but a conversion ADU. You can also have detached ADUs, and those are structures that are completely separate from the envelope of the primary home. Sorry, that's my mom there walking behind me. I'm on a podcast here, Mom. Would you mind leaving? I'm on a podcast right now. Sorry. Hope your audience found that entertaining.
Yeah.
I'm hanging out at my mom's house right now. So, and she actually has an ADU. If you want, I can even pick up my laptop and show you. But her garage, which is a detached structure, has been converted to a secondary dwelling unit that's rented out to a separate tenant. So you've got attached, you've got detached, you've got new construction, you've got conversions. You've also got something called junior ADUs, which are sort of almost like a subtype of ADU, and also defined in the law. A junior ADU is less than 500 square feet and must be attached to the primary residence and fit within the existing envelope of the home. They have really different rules than regular ADUs, much more difficult to rent them out, for example. And they can have like a little kitchenette rather than a full kitchen.
Yeah. So essentially, it's basically you can convert a portion of the house into a junior ADU or even a full-on ADU.
Yep.
And you can even convert the garage. So prior to this, at least based on my understanding, properties had to have certain zoning like a R2, R3 high density zoning in order to be able to have a mother-in-law suite or a secondary unit or a 3 unit. But
or a garden cottage or a carriage home, or there's a million names for it, and they take many forms. But you're absolutely right. They used to be very difficult to get permitted. So you actually saw a lot of illegal or unpermitted ADUs. I'm sure you've seen properties that have a little basement unit that's not legally permitted, so very dangerous to rent that out as an investor or property owner. But what's happened is that as of January 1st of 2020, the state of California passed a sweeping set of new legislation that not only made ADUs much more feasible in terms of getting them permitted to build, but actually encourages their development as well. So at the state level, which supersedes any of the hurdles that your local jurisdiction might put in place to prevent ADU development, limit ADU development, the state now says you have the right to build an ADU as long as it fits within certain parameters.
And before, it was only for owner users, and then as of January 1st, it became available to investors as well too, right? And it became simpler because there's obviously like a set of guidelines as well too that now the cities have to follow to encourage people to actually do it.
100%. It used to be a nightmare, right? And that's why so many of the basement units or garage conversion units, or you can build a detached structure, they used to be mostly like unpermitted or illegal, and as a result, dangerous and very risky to rent out. So so the first thing the state did with the new legislation is they put a 5-year ban on owner occupancy requirements for ADU permits. So what that means is, you go to your local city, let's say Thousand Oaks, which is pretty near where you are there. We have a project in Thousand Oaks, by the way. Thousand Oaks historically has not liked ADUs.
No.
They try to discourage people from building them, or even just like literally make them impossible. So one of the things they might have done is said, yeah, you can have an ADU, but you're not allowed to rent it out, period. So we're going to put a deed restriction on your property so that you and any future owners will not be able to rent out the ADU. And as a result, you're disincentivized from wanting to build one because you can't generate any rental income. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can still use it for family, sure, but it's a big disincentive.
Absolutely.
So the state says 5-year ban on any local jurisdiction placing owner occupancy requirements on ADUs. Now, the same thing is not true for junior ADUs. There is still an owner occupancy requirement on junior ADUs. To rent out a junior ADU, you have to live in the primary residence. Or you can live in the junior ADU and rent out your primary residence. That's fine. But there is still a deed restriction placed on the property for new ADUs permitted against short-term rentals. So you're not allowed under state law to like Airbnb your ADU after you build it. It has to be a long-term rental or used for family usage, aging in place, adult children, things like that.
I actually wasn't aware of that. So basically, to keep it simple, somebody could take a single family residence with maybe like an addition and basically a detached 2-car garage and make a primary, not a single family residence, make it basically into a duplex or even a triplex.
Yeah, exactly. The state of California has ended single family zoning.
Yeah,
so no matter what. Go ahead.
Which basically now makes it so that like as an investor, you can basically make sense of a lot more deals because you're taking like the rental income on a single family residence. Now you have a second unit. Now you have a third unit that you can use to basically help you cash flow. And basically not only that, but you're providing affordable housing for a lot of people as well too.
I mean, the thesis that we present as a business to investors is very compelling. I think the single family home to a triplex thing is a little bit spurious because the junior ADUs can't really be rented unless the investor wanted to live on the premise. In that case, you could convert the single family home to a triplex. But every single family home in the entire state of California is now effectively zoned duplex, right?
Perfect.
You're allowed to buy a single family home. And as long as you meet these very clear and consistent and straightforward state guidelines, you're allowed to build or convert a new detached or attached ADU, rent both units out, you've turned it into a duplex. But the single family homes are still selling for the price of a single family home. You can buy them, take advantage of the expensive land that you already own, not have to buy that land again. And, depending on whatever method you want to do, for fairly low price, build a second unit for the fraction of the cost of what it would take to buy like a similarly sized condo down the street. but generate the same rental returns, which are massively outsized against the cost of the single family home. And while you're doing it, you're helping the environment, you're helping the community, you're building social equity, you're reducing commute times, you're keeping families together, which have knock-on effects for education. I mean, it's just like a win for everyone across the board, except for NIMBYs. NIMBYs are mad.
I'd probably say it's one of the best laws that went through, obviously, to be honest, one of the best laws. So now that we've kind of touched on what is an ADU, and I think a lot of people would see value in that, let's kind of touch on some of the differences between what is a prefab ADU to a regular ADU, and how does that benefit consumers. And then after that, we can kind of go through the steps of like, what are the steps like to basically install a prefab versus a regular ADU, and to see if it's actually simpler for somebody, you know?
Yeah, so you're an investor listening to this, or you're a homeowner, and you're saying, wow, I didn't realize that I had like constitutional right in the state of California to build an ADU. I have a garage, I have a basement, I have a big backyard. Like, what's the best approach? I definitely want to add more space that can be separately rented or separately used by family. What are the different approaches? Well, either way, you know, you're doing construction, and usually I like to bucket this into sort of three buckets when you think about what is my approach as a homeowner or as an investor to construction. The first bucket is traditional sort of stick building. And that's, you know, wood framing and insulation. And it's a very well understood process. Lenders are very comfortable with it. There's a lot of GCs out there. You call up your local architect, your local structural engineer, your local GC, and you just build it in series, step by step. You do your site work, you lay your foundation, you frame out the walls, put in the insulation, do the drywall, do the roofing, finishes, fixtures, permitting, the whole shebang. The way I think about stick building in terms of trade-offs, it's going to cost way more money because you have an army of subcontractors that all have margin they need to take on the project. You need extremely highly skilled labor, right? You need like expert carpenters and expert roofers to do this work for you. You're not buying materials in bulk, and you're trying to orchestrate this complex construction project. So it ends up being much more expensive, usually by about double other methods. Oh, for sure. It's very expensive, right? And it depends on your local geography of exactly where you are, what the local costs are. But it's like building a Toyota Prius in your driveway with a team of 20 guys over 18 months, right? It's not going to be the world's most efficient process, and there are going to be costs associated with that. I'd rather build my Prius in a factory with machine-like precision and buying my materials in bulk and what have you. So the other trade-off on the positive side with stick building is you get completely custom designs, right? You can work on exactly the design of the unit or the structure that you want with an architect, and you can have the local GCs build it, you know, exactly the way you want it. Yeah. But cost overruns, higher prices, and a lot of delays, a ton of delays in stick building. I don't know anyone who's built a house that says it was done on time. Always delayed. So that's stick building. The next bucket is what I'd call sort of like prefab modular. So this is building a unit offsite in a factory and then shipping that unit and installing it at your house. And the last bucket I'll eventually get to is manufactured, which is similar but has some key differences, which we'll chat through. So in this second bucket, like prefab and modular, we're building all or some of the unit offsite in a factory, whether that's building a wall and then shipping and stitching the walls together, or an entire unit. There's a lot of efficiencies with this prefab process, right? It takes about half the time. It tends to be dramatically less expensive because you're buying materials in bulk. You have machines and precise engineering doing the work in a climate-controlled environment. The cost of labor tends to be a lot less because you need less skilled workers to work the machines. And it can still be somewhat flexible depending on whether you're doing a panelized like system or building entire units. But in this second bucket, we're building to state and local code, and that has some problems. Whenever you're building a state and local code, you're dealing with state and local inspectors, And so when you're building offsite in a factory, those people can be difficult to get to come inspect the unit before it leaves the factory. And there are a lot of really burdensome requirements at the state level. Like every detached structure needs solar panels, non-negotiable, for example. But it's a good approach. It can save a lot of time and money relative to stick built. But the model that we use and the model that saves the most time and money for a customer is manufactured housing. And this is a really interesting sort of segment of the building code. Instead of building to state and local law, you're building to universally approved federal HUD building code. It was a building code originally designed for mobile homes, but now has been generalized into manufactured housing. It's super fast and easy to get approvals. The costs of construction are way lower, and it's universally accepted everywhere. And you don't have to do things like solar panels.
That is awesome.
And since you're still building offsite in a factory, you get all the same efficiencies as it relates to time and money. There are no delays. Everything moves on schedule. Super predictable, super controllable.
So let's touch on that. So let's say that somebody wants to move forward with the manufactured home, the third option. And let's say that somebody wants to start the process. What would the first step be? Like, basically, do you guys come out to the property, have a consultation? And then after that, do you guys already have like certain plans that you guys use for every project, basically?
Yeah.
And how fast would it be to basically get those plans approved relative to maybe like the process of stick building?
Yeah. So let me chat through the first step of the process in all three, and then I'll chat through the permitting, which is usually like the second step in the process in all three. So first step.
And by the way, I love how you broke it down into the three different sections. That was
I try to add structure, or else it's hard for people to kind of grok what's going on.
Yeah.
So in the stick built path, your traditional construction, the first step is really like calling an architect. There are some ADU catalyst companies out there that basically like specialize in hiring architects for ADU projects. But yeah, you have to get an architect to come out, and then they're going to do some drawings. You're going to spend $5,000 to $20,000 with the architect, and then another 5 to 10 with a structural engineer. And then you go submit permits once you have like a plan, and it's completely customizable, which has its ups and downs. Like, that complete freedom and flexibility can be overwhelming for a customer as well. Like, constraints can be helpful when designing a home, right?
Of course, yeah.
So that's step one for stick building. Call a local architect or local stick builder ADU company that can come out and do the initial assessment and what have you. On the modular side, to build a state and local code in a prefab method, you basically just have to get on the phone or fill out a web form for one of these other ADU companies that are out there. There are many. I won't name them, but I'm sure your audience can Google them. They tend to be, as mentioned, a lot more expensive, but their initial intake process is probably like a call with you to understand your situation and a site visit to view your property and your lot for feasibility. And that's the same that our process would be at Habitat ADU. So if you want to go the manufactured housing ADU route, which again is by far the fastest and least expensive, you would call us or fill out a form on our website. And the first thing we're going to do is like answer a million questions you probably have. And we're going to come to a site visit, right? That's really the key here. Half of the costs associated with an ADU project have nothing to do with the construction of the unit. They're about the site itself. You've got to work up a permit package, then submit permits. We've got to do some site demolition and grading to prepare the site. We have to build a foundation. Then after we, kind of ship and install the unit on the foundation, there's utilities connections. We might have to upgrade an electrical panel or figure out a delivery pathway or install a new sewer trench. So there's a lot of work there to figure out in advance of you even getting a formal quote and proposal on your prefab or manufactured project. That's the point of the site visit and part of our initial intake process before we deliver to the customer a proposal. That's really the completion of step one, right? The architect plus structural engineer gives you a proposal with really rough estimates, or a prefab modular or manufactured ADU company gives you a proposal. If you say go, then usually you have to put down some sort of a down payment or deposit, and you get into the permitting phase. And I can talk through what permitting looks like It's effectively the same process. You work out a set of plans with your architect or with your ADU provider company. We're turnkey, so we do all of this for the customer. You submit those plans to the city, and then multiple departments have to either comment, reject, or approve your plans. So the planning department is the big one, and the planning department is the one that prior to January 1st, 2020 would say no to almost every single ADU permit submission. Now, the state of California has basically banned local planning departments from saying no. In fact, they have to say yes, and they have to say yes without any discretionary or design review. It's all ministerial. Here's a form. Do you check the boxes? You're approved at the planning department. Then you have to go through the building department and the fire department and things like that. The building department is really interesting, and that's what sets Habitat ADU apart. The building department and the building inspectors will not nitpick. I mean, they have a job to do. It's structural health and safety. The structure of your building. The studs need to be this far apart. The nails need to be this far apart. Those things at the local level and at the state level are pretty burdensome. They'll require all sorts of like really extensive energy efficiency requirements like solar panels. Or you can, instead of going through the local building department, get the federal HUD building department to approve you. And that's what happens with us at the factory. It's fast, it's easy. The requirements are a lot less expensive while still being, really high quality bar from a quality and safety of the unit plus an environmental perspective.
So do you guys already have like a set of plans that somebody can basically use because you guys are federally approved? Or because I'm doing a couple of ADUs with the stick building process, and I know that they had to basically customize something and basically goes back and forth. So for somebody like what you have to offer, how does that differ? Do you guys already have that? And is that something that they can check out on the website?
So the approval process with permitting is the same. I mean, you can custom design a manufactured home and submit it to a federal HUD building code, and they will make comments and it will go through federal HUD approval, the same way it would locally. But most ADU companies, and us included, don't actually operate that way. We, as you mentioned, have 9 different pre-architected, pre-engineered floor plans. This is really done to keep it simple for the customer and to save them money. Like, why spend money on an architect if you don't have to?
Every single time,
Yeah. So we have 9 floor plans that can fit your needs, whether it's a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, or a 3-bedroom. If it's skinny and long, or if it's kind of more square and squat, we have different designs that can fit all sorts of backyard shapes and all sorts of needs of families or investors. So you can pick from a pre-architected, pre-engineered plan, save a lot of time and money on that design process. And in many cases, it's pre-approved by HUD since we've done this model before.
You
don't even have to go through much of a building department approval process there.
Because it's already been approved.
Yeah, but
passed.
Yes and no. Like they have to approve every single unit. It's just that the plans themselves have been pre-engineered and approved, so it's faster. They'll still review it. And then on top of that, you as a customer have the ability to customize and be flexible a bit within those plans. So while we have models that have been pre-architected and pre-engineered, you might want to swap out your countertops from Corian to quartz, or that flooring you want to take from carpet to vinyl plank. Or you want to move a door 6 inches or change out that window for a different type of slider. Those things have to be approved by HUD, just like they would at the local department. It's just a lot faster and easier because you have a base plan you're working off that's already been approved.
So how does that save the consumer money? Like, do you guys give those away with them signing a contract with you guys to actually build out the home? Or is that something that they pay an additional fee but save the money via the architect and the stick figure building process?
Our base prices are just so much lower, and the reason for that is multifaceted. It's not just that our permitting process is more efficient. That is a part of it. And you're right that if you make too many modifications to a base plan, you will end up paying a premium for like the engineer we need to go hire to get your new plans approved. But for the most part, you're saving money by not needing to hire an architect and not needing to hire an engineer. And you're saving a ton of time because we have this very expedited federal approval process.
Mhm.
But the real savings are on the construction itself. I mean, if you just imagine like buying 40 megatons of lumber all at once, you're going to get better prices. And then when you have machines building the house on an assembly line, super precise,
more
fast,
too.
it's just way easier. You can build more per hour. That means the prices come down. And then the labor that you need to hire, you don't need a master carpenter for every single home. You needed one for the first one to build the model, but now you have lower skilled labor that you hire to kind of put the pieces into place.
So let me ask you this portion. Whenever you guys provide your estimates, does that include like the all-in cost, or is that kind of just like, because I'm going through the process right now, and it's kind of like, okay, roughly about this much for the architect, roughly about this much for permit.
Yeah, here's a magic number per square foot that's like all in.
And then I have no idea what the construction cost is going to be, because obviously I want to get it approved first before I go get some estimates.
You can't even get bids until you're done with paying for permits. You're 30 grand out of pocket before you've even gotten bids on.
So that's the question that I would have, and I think that would be important for like the consumers as well too. Like, for example, like, does that differ at all, or do you guys basically give like an all-in price from the beginning, or
yeah, we do. That's one of the best advantages of prefab construction. It's not only more controllable because you're building in a factory and building the same type of structure every time, and you're not only saving money on that because of all the things we mentioned before and the bulk and repeatable process, but it's much more predictable, right? We know what it cost us on the last 200 we built.
Yeah, of course.
So on the 201st, we're able to give the customer up front on day one with no money out of pocket, a very complete, very turnkey, very comprehensive quote that line by line goes through, initial assessment fee, permitting costs, special engineering fee. On the unit, you'll see like upgraded countertops, add $2,000. Unit itself base, $80,000, whatever it is. And then on the site work, we come out and scope that work in advance. And because we're building so much of the unit in the factory, that site work is a lot simpler, right? And as a result, more predictable. So yeah, we're a turnkey ADU provider. We do everything A to Z, which means our quotes also include everything A to Z, from permits to foundation to site work, utilities connections, the unit itself, the finishes, the fixtures, the appliances. I mean, our units even come with a warranty, and that price is all included in our baseline pricing.
That is awesome.
It doesn't change, right? Like, there's no change orders, there's no upcharges, there's no delays. Everything is predictable and controllable and convenient for the customer.
That sounds awesome, man. That's what I like to hear. Cool. So let's say that somebody decides, they get the estimate from you and they decide to move forward with you guys. The next step obviously would be to get those plans approved. And that's pretty much a very similar process. They go through planning, they go to building and safety, then they get the stamp. And then at that point, do you guys start construction, or do you guys start construction at that point? Or
we actually, in theory, can start construction on the unit before the planning department approves, because the unit's built offsite in a factory. Typically, most customers will wait until they have permits before they want to move forward with construction, which is reasonable. So step one, we come to a site assessment, feasibility study, talk to you about the project. We work up a proposal. Step two, with that proposal, we kind of complete the design process of your unit, create the permit submittal package, and submit it to the city.
How long does that process take from, like, let's say the site visit, assuming there's no changes or anything like that? Like, are we talking about like a week, a month?
I usually say that our process is 3 steps, and each step takes between 2 and 3 months. So after you say, yes, I like this proposal, I want to move forward, there's 2 to 3 months to create the permit submittal package. That can be dramatically shortened. It usually takes that long because you're designing a home, even within constraints, and customers have a lot of like back and forth, and they want to like really review and make changes and edits. And then from there, we have to do custom engineering and pull together a foundation plan. But we'll say 1 to 3 months to create the permit submittal package. We submit it. It's 2 to 3 months for local cities to approve it. Technically, as I mentioned before, this is ministerial, and under state law, cities only have 60 days to approve permits. Pandemic, they're not hitting it. It takes 90 days, but it's fast. It's much, much, much faster than traditional entitlements processes.
Oh yeah, big time.
So we'll say at worst, usually 120 days to get your permits approved. And that's stick building. I mean, for us, because we're pre-approved at the federal level on the building department side, we can skip that permitting process. So it's even more efficient and faster. And then the construction is only like 2 or 3 months. The unit is built in the factory in a month, about a little bit less actually. It's the site work that actually takes time. We've got to get back there and do some grading, build a foundation. All the different utilities have to be connected. That process takes about 2 months. The set of the unit onto the foundation is like 48 hours. And then there's usually 2, 3, 4 weeks of kind of finishing work, touching some things up, connecting corners and finishing flooring. And sometimes we do like on-site stucco to finish the unit. We got to get a final inspector out there, a certificate of occupancy. But overall, you're looking at 6 to 9 months of total project time from the day you say yes to your proposal until you have keys in hand.
Yeah. So it sounds like I think one of the real benefits for people is if they don't want to be like managing a GC, if they don't want to be managing the subcontractors as well too, like it sounds like the construction process is a lot easier. I've got a question for you though. So like if you guys already have a lot of the stuff and like let's say somebody didn't want to make any changes, it sounds like the site for the plan, like that would probably be the most time consuming in the submittal of the
no matter what. So for example, we have an inventory unit right now, which is rare for us. So this is a completed unit that was built that we absorbed into our inventory, and we've got it sort of wrapped and in a secure location with our delivery installer. So the unit's built, and we've had customers who are interested in that unit because
it's ready to go
tomorrow. Like I want to live in it tomorrow in my backyard. Doesn't actually, it saves you a ton of time, but it doesn't save you like 9 months of time. We still need like a week to put together the permit package. There's no skipping the 60 to 120 days of city permit review on the building's done on the building department side, but on the planning department side, we have to go through that. Fire department has to have their say. And then we still have to do site construction, right? Like, so we're still gonna have to do the grading, the foundation, the utilities, all that. But it'll shave a couple months, and it'd be more like a 4 to 6 month project than a 6 to 9 month project.
Yeah. Okay. Cool, man. So, like, let's say that we submit the plans to the city, then basically they come back, they're approved. So let's talk about the cost. Like, okay, like so I know like construction cost. People usually go price per square foot or something like that, or at least that's what contractors will bid. I know that you kind of mentioned that. I mean, the cost is half. What do you guys base it based on a price per square foot, or how does that sort of?
To help people go apples to apples, we don't price per square foot, right? We know the full price. Line by line of our projects when we provide a proposal. So we don't have to give you a price per square foot on the unit. We can just give you the price for the unit as a whole. Same for the foundation, same for the utilities connections, same for the cost of a crane if we need one, et cetera. So we provide to all customers a comprehensive all-in construction bid and proposal, not an estimate based on some magic number that was created in a completely different type of construction project in a different jurisdiction on a much larger home. That can, of course, be change ordered to death 2 months later.
Yeah.
So we give people a locked-in budget complete for their project. Of course, you can then take the square footage of your project and do the math. Let me just see what that comes out to give you and your viewers.
Yeah, that would be awesome if you could do that. The other thing that I was kind of thinking is kind of like if you can kind of give us a breakdown of like approximately how much it like a manufactured ADU costs, like for your standard.
Yeah. Like so our smallest unit is a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 450 square feet.
450,
450 square feet. And then again, our pricing, which is all in, and I can't stress enough that architects and constructors, like they don't really quote you all in. They leave out things like the permit, or they underprice the finishes or the fixtures, the appliances. Anyway, so this is true all in. That's $179K. And that includes
for a 450 square foot ADU.
Yeah, which is going to come. It's probably not going to pencil out that low per square foot, but yeah, it's somewhere in the
close to like 400 price per square foot. So let's dig into something larger, like a 1200 square foot one.
Sure. And I did just want to point out on that
you get like economies of scale.
It's hard to apples that you'd have to ask, your architects and your GCs.
Yeah, this is not a price per square foot, because this includes everything. It includes the permitting process. It includes
the appliances. It includes a warranty.
It's basically like everything. So you'd have to combine the estimates that your GC's giving you with the estimates from your contractor, to the estimates from the permits, to the estimates from basically everything, basically.
Yep. So the 1,200, we have a 1,200 square foot model. That's 3 beds, 2 bath. It's roughly 1,200 square feet, and that all-in price, and assuming you have a pretty straightforward project in sight, the foundation, the delivery, the install, that's $269,000. So that's
$269,000.
1,200 square feet. That's about $224 per square foot.
Great, man. That's actually so like I've been quoted like at 230 just for the construction, like 230 just for construction. That doesn't include plans, that doesn't include a lot of other stuff, So like I think it pencils out more on the larger ones as well too, just because you're benefiting from the scale as well too.
There are some fixed costs that you can't get away from at the lower ones. Like if you need a crane, that's $20,000 regardless of whether it's a big unit or a little unit. So, yeah, we can look at like the
224.
Like the 750, for example, is sort of a mid-size unit that's pretty popular. That's 2 beds, 1 bath, 219,000 all in. And then if we divide that by 750 square feet, that's in the like 290 range.
Still good, yeah. Considering it's all in and everything gets done. So like, all right, so essentially you guys take care of everything basically. So you guys have the people that will go in there and grade. You guys have the people that will build out the trenches. You guys have the people that will basically build the foundation basically for somebody. And you guys have the people obviously that are going to transport the home and then basically install the property on the location.
And this is actually really unique for a prefab, whether it's modular or manufactured ADU provider. Like we're truly turnkey. We don't just like sell you a unit and then throw you over the fence to a GC to install it. We are the GC of record on our construction projects.
That's awesome.
As you mentioned, we have people, vendors in our network or employees in our company who are responsible for not just delivering the unit to you, but installing it on a foundation, doing the foundation work, doing the crane work, doing the utilities connections work, etc. And as a result, like we really own and are accountable to the pricing and the proposals we provide. If we have to do the work, we're going to price that work out well and be held accountable to the results.
So some of the things that are on site that you guys have to do, and at what point do you guys do these things? The whole grading, at what point does that happen? Does that happen once the plans are approved, or does that happen before?
We can't start site work until permits are approved.
Perfect. Okay.
That usually, like I said, that's state mandated. City must approve permits after a completed packet of permits are submitted in 60 days or less. They're a little bit late, usually. Pandemic. Until permits are approved, we can't start the site work. The first thing we do on site work is this grading, right? Usually there's a tree that needs to be removed or a slope that needs to be evened out a little bit. Then we can kind of start churning the soil, do the foundation next. About that same time, we're working on utilities. So we've got to connect sewer, water, power, and interface with our subcontractors to make all of those things happen. Different strategies there depending on the site. We try to find the most cost-effective solution for customers. So whether that's running a new power line off a power pole that's in the rear or connecting to the electrical panel in the basement of the primary residence, explore that, present options to the customer. That work is done. Foundation's done. Then we are shipping the unit there with our delivery person. And then we have an installation team that sometimes we need a crane to lift the unit up and over the house. Sometimes we just roll it in through the side yard. And then there's a team of specialized contractors that attaches a completed unit to the foundation. Then there's like 2 or 3 weeks of kind of finishing work that we do. Say we're repainting the exterior on site, something like that. That work is done. final inspection, keys in hand, you get a warranty, all your appliances are already in the unit, it's turnkey, livable, ready to go.
That is awesome. So essentially from the point it gets delivered, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 weeks to basically get it completed. Maybe like a month, let's say 30 days. It takes about 30 days for them to be able to get the final permit and or not the final approval, and then basically be able to move in essentially.
Yeah, the kicker on the finishing work is whether the unit shipped as one module or more. If it was more than one module, then we need to stitch and seam those two kind of boxes together to create one seamless floor plan, and that stitching and seaming process can add a little bit of time.
And is that included in the 2 to 3 week process?
Yeah,
30-day process basically?
Totally.
And then it could be shipped as one as well too, based on what I'm hearing from you essentially.
Yeah, the smaller units ship as just one module, and then those are a little bit faster to get cleaned up on site and get your final inspection and what have you.
That's awesome. Cool, man. So you mentioned a guarantee a couple times. Like, what guarantee would a manufactured home have? Like, is it like a year, 2 years? What are we talking?
So all manufactured homes must come with a warranty, which is awesome and an advantage over state and local code construction. But yeah, we have a 7-year warranty that comes with our units, and that it's a monster warranty, and it covers all major systems, and it supersedes, like, if you've got a new Whirlpool dishwasher, that has its own warranty. Our warranty will supersede it. So for like 7 years, you have one phone number you need to call to get anything fixed pretty quickly, which is great.
Yeah.
Habitat, outside of that, happens to also have an ADU price guarantee. That's a refund-based guarantee. It's a little bit tricky to explain without like walking through a proposal with a customer, but basically we come out to your site, we present you a proposal, we do the work to scope out line by line exactly what each part of the project will cost. Mm-hmm. And we say, here's our proposal. What do you think? Do you want to move forward? If you say yes at that point in time, and then we go submit your permits, we can't get the permits, or the comments come back from the city and they've changed the price dramatically, or something occurs during the buyout process where we got something wrong, and because you happen to be on a burial ground, the foundation work's twice as expensive. Mm-hmm. If any of those things happen, you're entitled to a full refund of all payments to Habitat. So you can get like 4 months into the project and have zero money at risk, which is pretty nice.
That is awesome. Great. Okay, cool. Wait, I like that. So the last thing I wanted to ask you is financing. So like essentially like some of the questions that people have for me a lot of times is, I mean, this sounds like a great idea. For $219, I could add an additional unit and I can rent it out for $1,900. But I don't have
cap rates are off the charts.
Yeah. So my question.
Where do I get $219,000?
Say it again.
Where do I get $219,000?
Yeah, where do I get it? Like, can they? Is the most traditional way they refinance their house? They get an equity line of credit. Do you guys offer any? Are the programs different from a manufactured home to basically stick building? So yeah, can you answer that?
I can. Financing is complicated, and it is a major project. It's a bargain when you think about the yields your property can generate.
Yeah.
But it's still a huge chunk of money to come up with, no doubt. I would say today, 95% of our customers are either using some massive amount of savings and like 401k money and family money that they've accumulated, or they're doing one of the methods you mentioned, which is rather than looking outside of the mortgage world where rates are much higher, terms are much shorter, and just like general terms are much worse, they look in the mortgage world where 30-year fixed, government subsidized interest rates, everything is really good. So it's an unbeatable loan product. The question is, can you qualify? To qualify, you generally need some equity in your existing residence, and then you can do like a HELOC or a cash out refi. Mm-hmm. The kind of big, exciting new thing that we're seeing in the financing space, Fannie and Freddie are both, pro affordable housing, pro housing development. So they've created some tweaks to their renovation loan products independently that both are very pro ADU and make it easier and more expansive to use a renovation loan to build a new or conversion ADU on your property. The terms are pretty off the charts, right? On a renovation loan, you're still getting these great government subsidized rates that are at all-time lows right now.
Yeah.
Instead of borrowing against your existing home's current value, you can borrow against your future home's as improved value and at an LTV that's like 95%.
Wow.
So generally, that's a good place to go get the money if you have a single family home. If you're working with like a duplex or a multifamily property, it's much more complicated. You're probably going to need to raise some equity, work with private money lenders, things like that. But there are financing products out there and available for people who are.
Let me ask you this. Would that renovation loan have to be done prior to closing on the property? Like, meaning like they basically, you're buying the property, you're in escrow, and you know that you want to do the ADU already, and you're getting the renovation loan? Because I've done renovation loans on a house, and basically it's kind of done through the escrow. Or if the 95 LTV, can that be done after the fact, after you close on it? Or is that something you might have to get back to?
I mean, definitely like in the multifamily space, we work with investor customers all the time that are doing a private money, sort of more discretionary loan that's a single time loan that's an acquisition plus construction.
Yeah.
One-time close, and then they'll refi after a bridge period into a permanent sort of portfolio loan. But for your everyday homeowner, I have no idea. We should get any individual homeowners in touch with licensed loan officers to discuss how like home style renovation works for a new acquisition. I'm not sure. It is a first position lien, so it should theoretically be possible.
And then you guys have already, I would imagine, a list of loan officers that you guys can contact your clients with. I'm imagining if somebody needed a recommendation for a loan officer.
Yeah, I've got a list of like 20 really experienced loan officers who kind of have some emphasis or focus on ADUs. I also have another list of hundreds of alternative financing options for customers that are in one of those weird corner case situations where traditional mortgage financing doesn't work.
So what do those look like? Are they like basically like 1 year loans, 5 year loans, 10-year loans? Or they probably like 5, 6, probably like 8, 10%, somewhere around there? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, yeah. So private money lenders, sure, you're looking at, bridge period, interest only 8 to 10% loan products that are meant to be refinanced. They're like interest only payments for 2 years, and then but they get you through the construction period. But there's all these alternative financing options that are even non-debt out there.
How much is
companies like Point and Unison and Unlock that if you have home equity, you can get $219,000 without even taking on any additional debt. No monthly payments, no interest rate. You'll sort of bring in a co-investor into your property to get funds out without needing to make any payments whatsoever. So it works great if you don't want to make monthly payments, or maybe your credit score is not as good.
Yeah. So what is that again? You said like a co-op, or what is that? And
it's a new class of financing. I would call it the category I would probably call home equity co-investment.
So basically an investor's teaming up with them to build the ADU or something like that, or no? Because I've kind of heard of something.
It's more generalized financing. So look up a company called Point, and then another company called Unison, and then another company called Unlock after this call. They're basically saying you have equity available in your home.
Mm-hmm.
We, as Point, want to provide you financing and funds that you need for home improvement or ADU development or whatever it is, or just to pay off student loan debt. Mm-hmm. You don't want to refinance your house and take on more debt where then you have further monthly payments. Mm-hmm. So what we can do is buy in as a partner into your property, like an equity investor would. You get $100,000 to use for your home improvement project or to pay off your student loan debt. Mm-hmm. We now sort of are co-investing in the property with you, and we'll share in that upside when you eventually sell your home. But in the interim period, you have no monthly payments, you have no interest rate, you don't have any debt.
What do those structures typically look like? Like I'm imagining they take a piece of the pie. We have to talk
they have very complicated legal structures, and I'm sure they try to make it as customer friendly as possible. But it's things like security option lien put agreements and things like that that are well beyond my expertise to explain.
It would basically limit the homeowner too, because they have to get their position secured. So the homeowner wouldn't be able to take additional money out after that and that sort of thing. So that
it impacts your property just like getting additional debt on the property would. It's certainly a secured investment, but it has some significant upside.
Yeah.
It also has some downsides. I mean, there's some trade-offs to this approach. Broader point being, if you want to build an ADU, and you have some assets, there are usually different financing products out there that are creative that can help your situation, regardless of whether you have the ability to do a cash out refi.
Awesome. Cool, man. So I've enjoyed the interview, man. I think that you provided a vast of knowledge. I think that people are definitely going to benefit from reaching out to you. Is there anything that we might have missed that you think would be helpful towards consumers?
I think number one thing is, if you are curious about building an ADU, I just encourage you to pursue it. I know it can feel like a big, kind of scary, thorny topic, but there's a reason it's such a hot one in California right now. The state of California has made it your right to be able to build one. You'll get a ton of value and utility out of it. It's a great investment. If we can be helpful for you, please feel free to reach out to us. But I'd encourage you to pursue building an ADU, whether it's with us or someone else, because I think it's a great thing for you as an investor, and also for the community and for the environment as well.
That's awesome. I actually forgot to ask one question, and it was about the down payment. Is that typically like a percentage of the entire project? And how does the payment process work? Is it like all due in full upon installation? Is it like 50% of the upon 50% of the work? How does that typically work?
With us specifically, we take a $1,000 refundable assessment fee to deliver a proposal to you. If you don't like it, that just gets refunded immediately. So you could call that free, but you need $1,000 on hand to get to the proposal stage.
Yeah, okay.
Then if you want to move forward because you liked your proposal, we need an additional $9,000. And then after that, you don't make a single payment until we start construction, which is 4 or 5 months later. And the construction payments are based on milestones, right? So as we do work, we get paid a little bit here and there for completing progress towards completion.
Awesome. Cool, man. Where can people find you?
My email is Erik, E-R-I-K, @habitatadu.com. If you have a property you'd like us to assess, you can just go to our website, habitatadu.com, type in the address, fill out a few questions. We'll be in touch to schedule a feasibility assessment on that property and answer any of your questions.
Awesome, man. Well, this was episode number 46. This is Erik Preston, Habitat ADU. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and basically there's going to be more interviews. There's also somewhere along here, you'll get a couple of other videos appear, basically just with a couple of other videos on ADUs that you might find helpful. So thanks so much, guys. We hope that you've enjoyed this interview. If you like it, subscribe again, like it. It helps the algorithm. And I appreciate you guys' time. Make it a great day.